Who do you think was more powerful? The unstoppable fury of Knightfall Vader, or the cold, calculating darkness of Suited Vader? When the Temple fell, the galaxy witnessed the birth of a monster. Anakin Skywalker, hero of the Clone Wars, became Darth Vader, a being of unstoppable rage and raw power. But after his duel on Mustafar, everything changed. The man who had once been the most powerful Jedi in history was reduced to a shattered figure encased in armour. Let's begin with the night the Jedi fell. Nightfall Vader, the version of Anakin seen in Revenge of the Sith during his march on the Jedi Temple, represents Anakin at the absolute peak of his raw power. His connection to the Force was unrestrained, burning with rage, grief and betrayal. At this point, Anakin's midichlorian count was the highest ever recorded, and the Jedi Council feared him not for what he had done, but for what he could become. We see this in the Revenge of the Sith visual dictionary, which states that Anakin's potential far exceeded even Master Yoda's. In that sense, Nightfall Vader's greatest strength was his untapped potential. However, potential doesn't always equal mastery. During the Temple massacre, Anakin was more driven by passion than precision. He could channel overwhelming power, yes, but without emotional control, he was chaotic, unstable and easily provoked. Take the duel on Mustafar. His rage, Anakin was powerful enough to match Obi-Wan blow for blow, but Obi-Wan, the more disciplined fighter, exploited his emotional imbalance. Anakin's inability to temper his arrogance and anger led directly to his downfall. He wasn't outmatched in strength, he was outmatched in control. As George Lucas himself explained in the making of Revenge of the Sith, Anakin in that moment is more powerful than Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan is smarter. Anakin's emotions make him lose. So yes, Nightfall Vader embodied more raw potential than any Force user of his age, but that power was wild, volatile, and self-destructive. He couldn't even control it enough to defeat his former master. If you're enjoying these lore-deep debates into Star Wars power and philosophy, make sure you subscribe, it really helps the channel. After Mustafar, Darth Vader was reborn in agony. The Dark Lord of the Sith novel by James Luceno and Lords of the Sith by Paul S. Kemp both show us how Vader initially struggled in the armour. His connection to the Force was disrupted, his reflexes dulled, and his body racked by constant pain. The suit was designed by Sidious to keep him alive, but also to limit him. The respirator restricted his breathing, the armour's bulk slowed his movement, even his synthetic limbs interfered with his Force sensitivity. At first, Suited Vader was weaker, physically and spiritually. He lashed out in rage, destroying his surroundings in frustration. But over time, that pain became his weapon. As detailed in Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith comics, Vader learned to channel his suffering into strength. His pain was his connection to the dark side. By the time of The Empire Strikes Back, Vader was no longer a broken man. He was a master of the dark side, in full control of his emotions and power. He moved with efficiency, not fury. He didn't rely on reckless power surges. He wielded precision. The same Vader who struggled to walk in the Dark Lord novel became the one who toyed with Luke Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back, dominating him effortlessly until Luke's desperate final blow. Suited Vader may never have reached the same potential as Nightfall Vader, but he certainly surpassed him in mastery. His connection to the dark side deepened with decades of study, meditation and control. This is supported by the Rise of Darth Vader, where Sidious himself acknowledges that Vader, over time, becomes more dangerous presence in the Force, no longer an unstable apprentice, but a true Dark Lord. So who was stronger? It depends on how you define power. Nightfall Vader had unbridled potential, limitless, raw, and fueled by emotion, but he lacked control and wisdom. His rage was his greatest weapon, and his greatest weakness. Suited Vader, on the other hand, was restrained but refined. He learned to live with pain, to use it. His abilities became colder, sharper, and more deliberate. He mastered techniques like telekinesis and the Force choke to terrifying perfection. In Vader Immortal and Jedi Fallen Order, we see how his sheer command of the Force allows him to dominate nearly any opponent with minimal effort. But even in that mastery, he never reached the power he might have had as Nightfall Vader. His body and potential were permanently limited. The tragedy of Darth Vader is that he became stronger in the dark side than ever before, but weaker than he was meant to become. For me, it depends entirely on which Suited Vader we're talking about. If we're talking about the Vader of those first few years after Mustafar, the one still learning to move, still learning to breathe, then Nightfall Vader wins by a landslide. His raw power, despite his instability, would have overwhelmed the early, clumsy Suited Vader. But by the time of The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, it's a different story. Suited Vader takes the win. Most fans forget that what terrified the Jedi Council was not Anakin's power, but his potential. Nightfall Vader burned bright, but brief. He was an inferno that couldn't sustain itself. Suited Vader was the enduring storm. Decades of discipline, training, and immersion in the dark side made him far deadlier. Even without his limbs, even encased in armour, Suited Vader surpassed Nightfall Vader. He didn't live up to what Anakin could have been, but he became far more than what Anakin was. And the most telling moment of all, on Mustafar, Nightfall Vader, at the height of his power, couldn't even control his emotion enough to defeat Obi-Wan. That, to me, says everything. So what do you think? Was Nightfall Vader's raw power greater, or does Suited Vader's mastery make him the true Dark Lord? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Next week, we will be discussing if Yoda was wrong to give Anakin an apprentice. You won't want to miss it. If you are enjoying these videos, consider becoming a channel member, and let's uncover the galaxy's greatest secrets together. Thanks for watching.